I was asked to be part of an interfaith service of healing at the North Hadley Congregational Church. Reverend Ellen Peterson, who organized the event, had planned the service to acknowledge the harm that many LGBTQ people have experienced due to religion-based bigotry. Bullying in the name of God that includes emotional abuse, verbal assault, rejection, condemnation, expulsion from places of worship and communities, from homes and families, and sometimes provoking and fueling physical attacks that are devastating even when they're not veiled. As a Muslim leader, what I chose to read was a chapter of the Quran entitled The Glorious Morning Light. It's one of the first chapters of the Quran that the Prophet Muhammad shared with his followers during a time when the emergent Muslim community was experiencing a great deal of persecution. It was a particularly dark, depressing time when many of the early Muslims might have been inclined to give up hope. The chapter reminds the reader that no matter how dark it is now, the sun will rise again, and that God's love is no less certain through the dark night. What struck me as relevant to us here today, though, was that it reminds us to be agents of divine love and mercy, to recall the blessings in our life and to pay that forward. There's a note on the English translation in which the translator explains that the Quran urges people to treat all those disempowered by society as an amana, a sacred trust. It doesn't matter why they're disempowered. It only matters that we step in to protect and empower them. A sacred trust is different from caring for something that is distinctly your own, where we have an investment in preserving it for ourselves. When we care for something that is only our own concern, if we let it fall by the wayside, it's only our loss. And amana is different. It's bigger than any of us individually. That made me think about our local transgender community and Bet Power's challenge to us to commit to treating ourselves and each other with dignity and respect. It made me think of all the transgender people, especially poor transgender women of color, who are victims of violence each year. It made me think of the two children in the Valley, Phoebe Prince and Carl Joseph Walker Hoover, who were bullied to the point of taking their own lives. It also made me think of all the recent suicides of young LGBTQ people around the country. Who was holding these young people as an amana, as a sacred trust? Where were their friends, their allies? Where was their community and their hour of need? I know that it's important to realize that we can't blame others for suicide, because that's always the choice of the person who's committed suicide themselves. But it seems that many of these cases, the people didn't confide in anyone, and you have to wonder why. At Trans Pride this year, which almost didn't happen and only did thanks to the tremendous last-minute effort of a handful of people, our allies, many of whom are not trans, we learned an important lesson, or at least I hope we did. We learned who had our backs, who viewed our community as an amana to protect and uphold. We also learned that we can't afford to not take that same responsibility for our community, both our trans community and our wider LGBTQ community. That's why this year our Memorial to Transgender Victims cannot fail to recognize the recent tragic loss of LGBTQ youth to suicide. Our responsibility, our sacred trust, doesn't stop at a single identity. It extends to all who are oppressed, because oppressions are all linked, and it extends to all who are hurting, because we know what it means to hurt. Before we leave this place, I want to ask all of you to do one thing. I want you to look around the room beyond your immediate circle, beyond your close friends and family to whom you already feel a sense of responsibility, and see the rest of the people that are part of this community. Choose one of them. Someone you know, but perhaps someone you don't know very well, or someone with whom you don't spend as much time as you feel you should. And commit this year to make them part of your amana, your sacred trust. Check in with them. Ask them how they're doing and listen to the answer. Get to know their fears and their joys. For that one person, make it your business to make sure that next year we are not asking who held them as a sacred trust. Where were their friends? Where was their community? I'm grateful to this event for allowing us to come together as one beautiful, complex, breathing entity, made up of so many unique and precious individuals. May we never forget to honor that. Before we conclude, I also want to make two quick announcements about